Hey, this is Harman Mixes, and welcome to my podcast. Today, we're going to be talking about some super interesting updates that have been going on with Penn Audio, the Penn Group, and Harman Mixes. Let's jump right in. Okay, time to jump into the podcast. Guys, it's been a minute since I've been able to record, and that's not entirely the whole truth. The simple reality is that I've actually recorded several podcasts, full podcasts, and I've been unable to release them because I keep having problems with my recorder. So if you've been tuning into the podcast, you know that I've complained about my recorder. It's dropped out in the middle of the recording of the podcast, so I've thrown money at it. I've replaced different things, and hopefully I've gotten to the bottom of it. You would think as production people we'd have this stuff figured out, but sometimes issues with gear, it just continues to cause problems. So I've recorded 3 whole episodes. I think it's been almost a month since I have been able to post a podcast. That is the reason for the delay. Very sorry about that. Do note that I have filmed with my iPhone, but in my opinion, the quality is very subpar. So I just wanted to wait to get it right, to get it fixed for you guys, and come back to you with good content. So we are back. It has been a month, and man, is there a ton to cover over this past month. The first thing I want to tell you about is that if you happen to want to go to Infocom, let me tell you what Infocom is. Infocom is a audio video lighting extravaganza. It's a gigantic trade show that happens once per year. And what happens is the show TikToks between Las Vegas and Orlando. My first year going to Infocom was 2022. I recorded a really bad Infocom overview video where I stayed at the Bellagio in Vegas. That was fun. And I went to Infocom. That was my first year. And then the next year, I took some of my team with me, and we went to Infocom 23 in Orlando. And here we are approaching Infocom 24. And what makes this year specifically special is that Infocom 24, the Penn Group, my company, is actually boothing at Infocom. So if you would like to meet me and my team, the people who are behind all of this, at Infocom in person, I'd love to meet you. You can actually go for free, or at least to the show. You'll have to cover your own room and board by using our VIP code. It'll be right here on the screen, as well as in the description below. So you can use that VIP code to get free registration to the Infocom exhibit hall. That's almost a $400 savings for you guys. So please take the opportunity to go ahead and register for Infocom if you can. Now, along the note of Infocom, I'm going to be all over the place on this podcast this week just because there's so much to cover about what all has been happening over the past month. I shared with you in episode number 1 of the podcast that I was going to be launching a speaker company. At that time, it was called Harman Designs, purely just because I couldn't come up with a better name. We have Harman Mixes, we have the Penn Group. I was like, Harman Designs sounds pretty cool. We can go with that. Coming to find out, the lawyer said no. There's some trademark issues. Apparently, one of the largest audio companies in the world owns the word Harman. I have no relation to it, even though it's spelled the same way as my name. So we cannot use Harman as a part of our name. Whatever. So we pivoted during a live stream with you guys down at the shop. Somebody suggested Penn Audio, and we adopted that name going forward. So Penn Audio is the new name of the speaker company. And I said to you in our first podcast back in December, by faith, that we were going to be launching summer of 2024, and we are on track. I'm so happy to say to launch our first products at Infocom in June 2024. We have the team hard at work on building speaker cabinets. We've gone through a number of different prototypes, driver designs, and so on. We're working with engineers to design crossovers and amplifiers and all of this stuff. There's so much happening. And what a joy that it is to get to do it, first and foremost. And B, I'm just thankful that when God gave me the word to speak, I put it into stone by delivering it to a podcast to all of you. And, here we are 4 months later, making that become a reality. Super happy with where we're at with Penn Audio. Do note that we have pre-orders up on the Penn Audio website now for Penn Audio speakers. So if you would like to be one of the first people in the world to get a Penn Audio speaker, you can go to the website and actually purchase a pre-order. Those will be shipping in June whenever they're ready to go. So very excited about that. All right, moving on to the other content. If you have been watching my channel for a minute, you'll note that I have been working on this series called The Fundamentals of Audio. I am still working on that series. I have scripts that I was developing this week. I have the content calendar ready. Like I said, I was having recording challenges, so I recorded several of those videos. I was not able to share with you, which is very frustrating given our hectic schedule right now to sit down and have the recording go to waste. So just having to persevere through some challenges on that front, but we'll get there. I'm optimistic on that front. I do have another 5 videos in the pipeline for you on the Fundamentals of Audio series, and we will be wrapping up the first leg, which is what I consider to be the Ultra Beginner series for Fundamentals of Audio, and we'll be moving on to a lot more in-depth kind of professional advice as far as how to mix, how an audio console works, and so on. So that's where we're at with Fundamentals of Audio and Penn Audio. Now, you might be saying, well, Austin, this is Austin Harman Mixes channel. What's going on with Austin Harman Mixes? I just shared with you about the Fundamentals of Audio series, but also I shared with you that we would be doing live events this fall, 2024. We are still intending on doing that. If you'd like to register your interest for a live training with me, we're going to rent out a facility, have a band come in, and we're going to do a one-day mini audio conference where we're going to go through a line check, kind of interact with the band, and then subsequently do a kind of live performance. So super excited about that. As we continue to work out details there, I'll share more with you. But if you'd like to register your interest for one of those live events, you can go to my website, austinharmanmixes.com. There'll be a link in the description below. Okay, that's enough for this podcast. No, I'm just kidding. There's so many updates to get through with all the things that are happening. Wow, what a chaotic time it is right now. But it's good. I am extremely happy to be on this path and on this journey. And I shared an incredible amount of gratitude over the past number of podcasts about being able to sit in this moment. And that doesn't mean that it's always easy. Behind the curtain, we have challenges across the board. We're dealing with business challenges, financial challenges, people challenges. It's all there. But what happens on the kind of exterior of all of those challenges is what people get to see. It's the products. It's the things that we get to put out in the world for people to use. And those are the things that matter to me and matter to our team. We're focused on making something that's great. And so long as we're focused on making something that's great, in my opinion, everything else will fall into place. And that's kind of the central focus for this podcast that I kind of wanted to dig into today, which is this concept of business being about tangibles and intangibles. So what do I mean by that? Well, first and foremost, whenever you are running a business, you have the profit and loss statement. Okay, that's going to be how much the money the business is making. For most businesses, unless they are not a business, they're a nonprofit, their goal is to make money at the end of the day. And for many businesses create livelihoods for people and subsequently make money month over month, year over year, and that makes the business grow. And as the business grows, more and more people can be a part of the business. And as that continues to occur, more and more people are enriched and their lives are positively affected. So there is a great amount of blessing in being able to build a business that employs people and to give people jobs and to give people hope. Now, all that to say, the profit and loss statement is tangible. We can look at each line on the P&L. We can say, okay, you spend $500 on marketing, you spend $500 on job supplies, and you only brought in $1,000. Net, $0, right? You didn't make any money at the end of the day. So as a management team, you have to decide, okay, where are we going to cut? We got to spend less money on job. We got to spend a little bit more on marketing, and we got to make sure we don't spend all the money so we have a little bit of money left over. And then you eventually just get into this math equation where you're constantly pushing and pulling and tugging back and forth, trying to keep things under control as a management team. Now, those are the tangible things. And it's not just about profit and loss, but it's also about things like operations, okay? If you're making something and say it takes 1 hour to make, and somebody comes in and says, well, we can make it in 30 minutes, that's a significant cost savings to the business because now all of a sudden that labor is not having to be paid for. That's a tangible cost savings. Now, let's look at it on the flip side. That person who came in and said, you know what, we can do it in 30 minutes. A skilled manager would say, well, can you do it at the same quality twice as fast? And for the most part, unless somebody has an extremely large industrial apparatus at their hands, the answer to that is no, right? So the tangible is we can save the money. The tangible number two is can we, we can make it twice as fast. But the intangible is will the quality suffer? And you say, well, Austin, I could say that that's probably tangible. Well, yeah, but I want you to realize what I'm trying to say here. The intangible aspect of it is quality at times is in the eyes of the beholder, right? The person looking at whatever it is that they're holding. And for all intents and purposes, if you have something that's handmade of very fine quality because it was made over many days by very skilled master craftsmen, the quality is apparent. And what happens is that if you were to speed up that process and sure you can make it faster, can you still ensure the same great quality? And most of the time the answer to that is no. But most managers are willing to take the tangible benefit, saying, we can go twice as fast and save the money. And they ignore the fact that you have the intangible, the quality of the product that still needs to persist. And further than that, if you're still wanting to argue and say, okay, well, quality is still a tangible thing. Okay, well, what about this? The intangible aspect of the perception of the brand in the eyes of the customer. Okay, if you think about Apple has positioned itself as a premium brand in the marketplace. Why? Because the quality of Apple's products are superior to a subset of the products that are on the market. One would say that the quality of Apple's products are better than, let's say, the quality of Hewlett-Packard's products. If you take the Macintosh, for example. My Macintosh is made out of anodized aluminum. The Hewlett-Packard is made out of plastic. The Hewlett-Packard bends and flexes like this whenever I pick it up. My Macintosh doesn't. Okay? Apple has better quality. But not across the board, but for the most part. Now, the intangible aspect of it is, a good example going back some years ago, Apple came out with the iPhone 5C, which just simply meant color. But the C everybody interpreted as cheap because the back of the iPhone 5C was made out of polycarbonate plastic. And it was prone to cracking and would bend and so on and so forth. So that product damaged Apple's reputation because their reputation for quality suffered at the hands of cheaper plastic. So you have to consider both the tangibles and the intangibles. And the reason why I wanted to dive into this today is because this applies not only just in business, but it also applies in audio, and it applies all across our life. And I'm approaching 30 years old at this point. So if you want to steal my identity, there's some information for you. But, I am still at some level developing principles that I stand on as a leader. Quality is obviously a very important thing to me, but the amount of time that I have versus the amount of quality I desire are not always proportional, right? And you still have to ship something. And in some cases, you just have to get something out in hopes that you can make it better over time. So I have definitely put out not so great content on this channel, but that's also been under the burden of having to deliver so many various things in so many different places. And you say, well, Austin, why don't you focus? You're telling me, man, I'd love to focus, but right now it's just not super tenable right now, but we're working on it. Hopefully at some point I'll be able to narrow in and be able to really focus on the things that I desire. But as of now, I have to be responsible. But anyway, the principle that I stand on with quality, with excellence, those things have long persisted in the brand of the Penn. But I'm kind of adopting this concept of business is about tangibles and intangibles, and life is about tangibles and intangibles, because I have seen so many different ways and so many different, I would say, cuts of corners that were made because the management team looks at the P&L and they ignore the intangibles. And the problem is that many of those intangibles are reasons for success in the business. And you can't be irresponsible as a leader and say, we got to ignore the P&L because Austin said quality matters over everything. You got to stay in business. But at the same time, you have to seek to understand what are the intangibles in the situation. I think that people often miss whenever they're trying to assess why something is successful is they say, oh, they're successful because they're cheap, or they're successful because they have a good location, or whatever. But a lot of the things that make a business successful or make an organization successful actually lies in the intangibles, the small stuff. Everything from somebody might like the gravy at this very specific restaurant, and that keeps them coming back, to somebody may like the sonic character of a specific speaker, and therefore they continue purchasing that speaker year over year, or they stay with that brand year over year, despite the fact that there's better things on the market, cheaper price, whatever. They're brand loyal because of something very specific and nuanced. Now let's apply this concept to audio, and more broadly in life. In audio, you might say, and this, believe it or not, is what fueled part of this conversation. Over the years, I've been criticized as a mixer for using too much reverb. And trust me, I have used too much reverb. I promise you. I have freaking made it ring till Jesus came back. I have 10-second delays, or verbs, whole note delays, as gross as it gets. I mean, everything you can think of effects-wise, I've been on the forefront. If you don't believe me, go watch the active mixing tutorial I recorded like 7 years ago. There's so much verb in that video, you can't hear a thing. It's borderline hysterical. But I have been criticized for using too much reverb. And I have been frustrated as a mixer because I'm like, you don't understand. The reverb is part of the sound, right? You want it to sound a certain sort of way, and therefore you have to have reverb to be able to make it sound this sort of way. And I've had argument after argument over the years, and for whatever reason, it's especially problematic with drummers because for whatever reason, every drummer I've ever worked with has always insisted that there should be no verb on the drums. They should be absolutely dry. Newsflash, dry drums sound terrible. Change my mind, at me in the comments. They really do. And if you actually go out there and listen to records, you're going to hear a lot of verb, okay? In fact, most of the sound on snare these days on a record is a gated verb. Don't believe me? Listen closely. Play around in Pro Tools. It's really there, I promise. So I from an audio perspective, have found myself at odds at times with people who have said, this is a principle, right? No reverb, we can't do this, we can't blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, you don't understand. In order to get a great sound, you have to be able to do these things. Now, we can tastefully dial it back or dial it up. And most of the time, it's just all or nothing. Okay. I had this situation happen some number of weeks ago behind the desk where I was told, too much reverb, Austin. And I'm like, what? There's not too much verb on this, which naturally, whenever you have that kind of reaction, is probably a good indication that you should check your soul, because you're probably wrong. I probably was. But as I was thinking about it, I started noodling again on this concept of tangibles versus intangibles, right? The tangible is we want to define the style, and we want to define how things are supposed to be done because we want consistency, or we want a specific sound. The intangibles, though, or the things that make a song great, are not always readily apparent. Okay, if you go back and you listen to some of the old Metallica recordings, specifically on the Black Album, "Sad But True," that record won awards for having great sound. And the simple reality is that it has a great sound because it's right in between your eyes, because it's like a 2 and 3K show. There's like so much high mids in that mix. And it's right in between your eyes because that's where all the presence is. There's hardly any bass in that mix, and it sounds cool. If you turn it up really loud on a PA, it really hurts your ears. But that is a great sound. It's a great song, and they were going for that very specific kind of ideal, or that ideology, whenever they mixed the song. Now, returning all of this, tangibles versus intangibles, blah, blah, blah. Coming back around full circle with life, the same conversation comes up often too with, should I go to college? Okay, I'm probably going to end up doing a whole podcast on this because I think so many people would disagree or agree, so on and so forth, about whether they should go to college. Now, the tangible thing, the question in your head is, should I go to college? The intangible is, what do I want to do with my life? And even further than that, more importantly, what kind of life do I want to live? Because if you want to live a rich and satisfying life, you have to do things that are hard. And for some, that hard thing is going to college. For some, that hard thing is to build a business from nothing. For some, that's both. For some, that's going to 12 years of medical school. For some, that's not doing any of that and working a regular job and living within their means. But asking yourself the question, should I go to college or not? That's a tangible thing. It's a yes-no answer. But thinking about, what kind of life do I want to live? And allowing that answer to guide your life and your decision-making is much harder to do. And it's intangible, right? You can't grasp at, what kind of life do I want to live? Because for many people, they haven't dreamt big enough, right? I never thought that it would be possible for me to own a Porsche. Well, I did. Luckily, I got rid of it because it was a money pit, but I sure as heck enjoyed it when I had it. I never thought it would be possible for me to own a business. I own a business. I never thought it would be possible to have a house with a bunch of stuff in it. Now I have a house with a bunch of stuff in it. So if you cap your thinking, okay, if you cap what you think is possible in life and what you think you're capable of, excuse me, you will ultimately never achieve your full potential. Now, all of these things come back to tangibles and intangibles, right? Intangible and intangible in business. Should we spend the money on marketing? Yes or no? Well, if the answer is yes, okay, great. Nothing happened to our sales. The problem is, what if somebody out there saw your ad and they come to you 3 months later. Well, your short-term marketing gain, it's not going to show that, but your long-term marketing gain will. So tangible versus intangible. To quote somebody who was a business leader I heard years ago trying to tackle that question, they said, why are we spending all of this marketing money and nothing is happening? And the person said, well, what if we don't spend the money? Then what happens? So anyway, a lot of different kind of topics and things to wiggle around with this concept of tangibles versus intangibles. But I do want to leave you with this, which is that as you go forward in life and as you continue to face decision after decision, always try to think about what are the tangibles of my situation? What can I grasp onto? What is a hard yes and what's a hard no? And what are the intangibles? What are the things that matter that I may not necessarily see? And I have to spend time to think about what I would do in those situations. So anyway, this has been Austin Harman Mixes podcast. Thank you so much for joining on this episode. If you enjoyed and if you stayed to the end, leave me a rock show emoji in the comments. I would love to see those. God bless you. We'll see you next time. Oh.